Everyone, we're here today in Oxford, Michigan at the Dominican Sisters convent and St. Mary's retreat house. But this house has a long history. This property has a long history. At one point it was an 800-acre farm, one of the larger farms here in Oxford Township. And somewhere near the beginning of the 20th century it came into ownership. It was mostly a dairy farm, I believe, by the type of barns that used to be here. But at one point it came into the ownership of a man named Alfred Buhl, B-U-H-L, of the Buhl Brass and Hardware Company in Detroit. And Mr. Buhl bought the property, the farm, the working farm, and he built a very large mansion summer home here called Oxford Manor. And we're going to show you that here. Part of this wasn't here. This church was added later after the Dominican Sisters purchased the property. But Mr. Buhl built this house in 1929, and the original house is the whiter cement part of the house that you see right here. And then right up there, let's zoom in on it a little. A beautiful old Georgian style mansion with elaborately manicured and landscaped grounds, servants' quarters on this end, a 4-car garage, extensive basement and storage facilities. And the main part of the mansion house had, let's see, I think it was 6 bedrooms. It's been a long time since I was the caretaker here, but I was the caretaker here for many years, and been all through the building looking for secret passageways and hidden staircases, and there was nothing like that in it. I always wondered if there was, but it was a really cool building anyway, with lots of interesting architectural features. A giant walk-in safe, iron grates on the basement doors for security because it was a seasonal house. And the nuns ended up getting the property from the second owner. Mr. Buhl only kept it for a few years. It ended up being built in 1929, like I said. Right after that, the Great Depression hit, and he sold it to Marvin Coyle. And Mr. Coyle was the vice president of General Motors Corporation. He kept it until about 1948 when he sold it to the sisters. The sisters added on a church, the residential wings down here on this end, an office area, which we can see, was added on after 1948. Actually, this was added on in the early 60s. They operated a girls' high school and junior college here. There were extensive grounds, water gardens and fountains back in this area here. And the water gardens are gone. The framework and that's still there for it, but the actual gardens are gone. There's a tennis court back there in the woods, and a cemetery that the sisters put in for the various nuns and workers who wanted to be buried there. In the late 90s, they built this new modern building here to make it easier for the sisters to live in their retirement years. Very spacious and well-designed building for the modern era. And they sold the old building to the Legionnaires of Christ, another religious order of the Catholic Church, who uses it as a youth retreat center. But we can see the cemetery over here, Our Lady of Sorrows. A lot of my old friends, the sisters, are buried here. And it's just a lovely, quiet place. Just beyond the cemetery there was the dormitory and one of the classroom buildings for the old DeLima Junior College that was on the property. And that's been gone for at least 10 or 15 years now. It's a subdivision back there now. This is the old orchard on the property that probably was here before the Buhls bought it, when the original farm family owned this. There was about 70 fruit trees out there. I can see one apple tree standing there still, but there was about 70 apple trees back there at one time I used to be in charge of. And down in that little gully there's a root cellar where we would store the apples at for the winter. Another apple tree there. So I guess out of all of our old apple trees there's like 2 trees still left, which is kind of sad. And they have a little garden here. So this is like a neighborhood community garden to help feed the poor. Over here are 2 of the original farmhand houses that are on the property that the farm help used to live in back in the turn of the century. Actually, there's 3 of them. There's a 3rd one in there behind the woods. The original farmhouse that dates back to the late 1800s was positioned... What? Oh, that's okay. The original farmhouse was positioned here. Let's see. Right here on this big empty square on the corner. It was a 2-story, 2.5-story giant farmhouse It had hand-hewn logs in the basement for its main support beams. It was just tore down about 1.5 years ago. And it's a shame to see it gone because it was a really cool old historic building. And again, we have that's the water well building there, and then that's the other caretaker's house. That was called caretaker's house number 5 there. And there's a residue of a big barn that used to be right next to it here. And there was 2 or 3 more large dairy and cattle barns out in that big open field. They've since had this was the main dairy barn here, but there was 3 or 4 more barns out here. So you can kind of see where the foundations used to be between here and the long storage shed over there. One of them was right here by this line of lilac trees. There was another barn over here. Just a big, full agricultural complex at one time with a great vineyard, dairy and cattle operation. They even had their own greenhouse to start plants in. The greenhouse was located right here, just along that row of pine trees between this bench and the pine trees over there. Was about a 50 or 60 foot long greenhouse made out of steel framework with glass panels in it. And that survived until the late 1960s when that was finally tore down. So the whole place has changed a lot over years, but North Oakland County was always like a home to exclusive summer mansions. There's Meadowbrook in Rochester that was in the Dodge car family, the Scripps estate from the Scripps newspaper family in Lake Orion, and then over by Romeo there's the Addison Oaks house, which was actually owned by the brother of Mr. Buhl here. Arthur Buhl owned this, and his brother owned the Addison Oaks estate, which is just about 7 or 8 miles due east of here. So part of our Oakland County heritage here, the estates and summer mansions of the rich and famous from Detroit. And I thought I'd share this one with you today. If anybody has any questions about the architecture or history of the Buhl Coyle estate here in Oxford, let me know. I can certainly answer any questions you'd have about it. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos for more cool stuff. Bye for now.